Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Decryption and I hope you are well. In the last medical minigame, we set it up so you can basically walk up to the medical cart with the demo character and then you can basically interact with it and then you become a medical cart. Very, very basic for now, something we are going to improve in the future, but we're just frameworking everything for now so we have a medical cart. So in today's tutorial, what I want to do is a mix of two things. I want to make it so the player can get back out, so we'll state something in front of it. You press E, it teleports the player there, switches you back over to them, so you become the player again. And then I also want to make it that when you get in the cart, just like GTA does, so if I've got this video here, you can see, if I mute it, as we walk up to the ambulance and you get into it, at the top corner here, where the logo is badly placed, you can see it says press to start the missions. And then I want that thing to pop up. We'll use some common UI tweaks to show it, otherwise I'll talk around it. And then when you press it, I want it to start it. We haven't actually got anything to start at the moment. That'll come in the next video, but that's fine. But we can initiate the process. Let's give them a thumbs up. But I'll show paramedic missions, or whatever I call my medic missions. And then we've got a place where we can lay the HUD, we can lay the timer, everything like that. And that's where we can also start spawning the NPCs eventually, and then add markers to the nav bar and everything like that. So let's get started. So let's start straight away by making it so we can switch between the cart and the player. I am fully aware this cart is very basic. I'm not a fan of it at the moment, but I just want to get the core framework done, then we can change how the cart handles later. I did see the odd comment saying we should just use the vehicle system instead for a cart, and to be honest, you might be right. Just a front wheel drive car thing, and then as it turns for the player turning, the back end turns kind of thing. But the other option we've got is we just still let the player walk, but the cart drag itself along. Dunno, we've got to have a look. I did attempt to record some mocap animations carrying this, but they need a lot of tweaking, so we'll ignore that for now. So how are we going to make it so the player can spawn back out here? So I wanted to use smart objects, but I haven't educated myself to the point enough where we can use them. If you don't know what a smart object is, it's something typically used for the AI behavior trees or state trees, where you can place an actor down, then you've got loads of options you can do. You can query finding smart objects, you can activate seats within a smart object, such as a car seat or a bench seat, or it's just called something like that. And then NPCs won't come and take over it if you're already in it. So for example, if we had a smart object here where the player was, for the player driving it, and we had a thief run up, they could check the nearest smart object, which would be us, see that our player has filled it in, and then activate stealing it mode. Whereas if the thief's just walking past and the player isn't sat in it, then they can just take it and get into it. And then all other AI will ignore it, or at least tell us if something's there. But because I haven't learnt that amazingly yet, what I'm going to do instead is use the next best replacement, an arrow. We will eventually upgrade this, but all I'm going to do is basically put this just out of range here. I'll probably just move it just so it's very roughly there, and I'll call this exit location. But one thing I have just noticed, we'll Control X to cut that, compile and save. I'll jump back into BPA vehicle, and we'll go to here. I'll just paste it in here instead, the exit location. So we can basically set this to anywhere we want, and then every vehicle is going to have a exit location, because everyone will. Some vehicles will have multiple exit locations, but at that point, we're adding proper vehicles. We'll look at smart objects, because that's what they're going to be good for. And then back on my child, I can just come and move this out here, like so. So we now have an exit location on our cart there. If I press G, it disappears, look. And now we can start coding the player to get back out of the vehicle. Now, unlike the start of the getting into it, where the player needs to actively see the cart to take over it, we don't need to do that. Where the player actively needs to see the cart to get into it, we don't need to see the player to get out. We can just get out at any point. So we've got this interactable change character we set up last time, which is just a blueprint to allow us to interact with an object. So in our case, changing characters. And all we're basically going to do is almost just reverse this logic, to be honest. So I'm going to copy that inside the BPA vehicle here. So we need somewhere where you can actually tell the player, exit this cart kind of thing. So what I'm going to do is come to my mapping context here. And at the moment, we're using the third person character's mapping context. And that's just basically going to control the cart the same way that the third person controller is used. However, I think we can improve that while we are here. So what I am actually going to do is duplicate this entire input folder. I'll duplicate it inside the blueprints folder. So I'll just copy it here. I'll come and rename this to be inputs. And inside of it, I'll rename this IMC default to IMC vehicle. And I'll open it up. I'm going to bin off all of these for now. And I'm just going to add I'm going to come into my actions folder. I'll just delete these just for now anyway. And then I'll create a new input action called IA_trigger minigame. Because if we do police, firefighting, whatever else, the trigger minigame can be reused across multiple things. Now, we don't need to change anything there, but on the IMC vehicle, we'll just add the input mapping. So we'll do IA, we'll just do minigame. There we go. And then in here, I'll just say M for the trigger minigame. And on the controller, we'll do D-pad org, just like GTA does. Why not? There we go. And now what this means is because we've got two input actions on our vehicle, we're going to keep it using the default one for now, so we're not having to change all the vehicle settings. But what we can do is also add another mapping context. So we'll do add mapping context, and then we can come and easily select our new vehicle one. And I've completely gone off scope slightly because we don't just want trigger minigame. That's later. It's good that we've got it, but I'll just actually call this exit vehicle. That's the one we actually need to do. And then if I override the IMC vehicle, then on here we will call it exit vehicle. I can't remember what we use to exit and enter a vehicle, so I'll just press enter because I think that's what GTA uses. Face button up. I think it's north button top. So now we've got our own specific vehicle controls. It's still using the default one until we decide to customize it. And as we customize it and add more controls, we can populate it to the vehicle one, like so. You might be wondering why aren't we just adding it to the default one? Because we may as well start moving it across to one which is better suited when the basic third-person character is using it already. So now that we've got this mapping context set here, what we can actually do now inside here is we can come and add the IA exit vehicle, the event one here. And then when it's started, we can actually tell it to start exiting the vehicle. So on our code up here, where we possess the vehicle, which is the owner, we can actually reverse this around like so. So we need to actually figure out how to get the player in this case. And at the moment, we lose all reference to this player when he's spawned. Because when we take over the cart, it changes the player's pawn to the cart. So the player's reference no longer exists. But we can easily replace this. So back on our BPA vehicle, we're going to add a new variable and we'll call it passengers. And then we will set this to a type of pawn. And then I'm going to right click it to turn it to an array. We technically don't need it instance editable, so we can leave that off. But now what this means we can do, but on our interactable, we can actually get the old pawn and assign it as a passenger into the vehicle. So almost we're keeping a log of all the people who enter the vehicle. And when, in the future, when we have NPCs getting into the vehicle to be taken to the medical one, we'll add them as passengers as well. We could even add special roles and seats and stuff, but we'll get to that in the future. So for now, we need a way to access the variables or set the variables inside this owner in the vehicle. So we're going to go and create an interface instead of casting to it. Because just in case you didn't know, if I come and cast to BPA vehicle, like so, just click compile. So even in a basic compile like that where I'm not using it, this interactable, if I right click and choose size map, is now permanently linked to the BPA vehicle. So if this interactable exists in the world, it's got to load the vehicle into the world, and we don't want that. So if I get rid of it and test the size map again, you can now see that it's reduced the size to almost nothing, which is exactly what we want. So we're going to use an interface to interact with the vehicle instead. So I'll come to my content drawer, I'll go into my interfaces folder. I'll just create a new one up here, and I'll call it vehicles, just so it's nicely organized. Right click, blueprint interface, and I'll call it BPI vehicle. I'll open this up. I'll simply add a function called add passenger, and I'll pass it a pawn, and it'll be a type of pawn. But what I will also do is I'll add an output of successful, and I'll set it to a type of Boolean. So if a passenger if somebody, code or dev, tries to add a passenger to a vehicle but there's no space, then we've got room to show there is no space in this vehicle or something like that. So now back on our BPA vehicle, I will go to class defaults and I will go to class settings, implemented interfaces, and I will add BPI vehicle like so. I can now double click the interface, and for now I'll just tick it as successful. I'll drag the passengers in and I'll just do add unique, and then I'll connect it up. We're doing add unique just in case you try to tell a passenger to get into a vehicle twice. We don't need to. There we go. And now we've got a nice neat way to add a passenger. So from the get owner, we can simply call add passenger, and then we can connect this up like so. I'll do some more neatening just to make it look nicer like so. I may as well plug in the branch just while we're here, just in case. So if it's true, it can go off and start to cast to the pawn, do everything it needs. If it can't, because it's false, then we will simply return something saying no space left in vehicle, like so. We'll hit compile and save. So the passenger we want to add, so that's simply going to be our current get player pawn, which will be our actual figure, so our humanoid, will be added as a passenger into the vehicle, then it will cast to the vehicle. And if it can't add them, then it won't actually add the passenger because we'll make it fail, and then it'll say no space left. So in theory, if we just come and make this instance editable so we can actually see it, when we now get into the vehicle, it should be added as a passenger, ready for us to modify the inputs. There we go. If I press F8 and click on the vehicle, you will see in the passengers we have one, and it is our third person character right there. So we've now got a way to tie the vehicle back to the passenger, which is perfect. So back in our BPA vehicle on our event graph, when we call exit vehicle, we need to find a way to get the player. For now, we're just going to get the first passenger because that can be the driver. Eventually, we'll set roles to each one. So we don't actually need any of these errors or the get owner or the cast anymore. So I'm going to highlight all of this, right click, and I'm going to collapse to a function called player exit vehicle, and I'll just connect this to the started one here. I'll double click into it, and the reason we've set it as a function is because now we can do some really nice optimization tweaks. So the first thing I'm going to do is get this passengers and convert it to a local variable called player passenger. And the reason we're doing that instead of just reusing that is each time you reuse this, it's got to relook over the array and get the first one. Whereas if you promote it to a variable, it's already done all the legwork. So it's a little bit optimized. Then I'm going to set this pawn's location and rotation like so. The location rotation will be the exit location. So I'll get location. We'll do get world location. I'll connect it up to there. Then we'll also do get world rotation, and we will also connect it up to there like so. Then I will connect this over to the possess here, and then I will grab the player passenger, connect it to the in pawn, and then finally we need to remove the passenger. So I'll grab the passengers, remove item, and connect it over to here like so. So now our small function will come in, store the player's passenger, so eventually we'll do a lookup there. It will set the player to the exit location, hopefully in the right rotation. If not, we'll fix that in a moment. Repossess the player so the player can take control of the humanoid, then remove it as a passenger from the vehicle. So now if we come and play, in theory, if we take over the cart, we can see the player stood there. If I come over here and press exit, which was enter, you can see the player has spawned in front of the cart, rotated, and we can move away. However, there is a bug that you will notice. When we go into the vehicle and we possess it, we add these two mapping contexts to the player controller. But we don't actually need these anymore, especially the vehicle one, because we've exited the vehicle, we don't need it. So what I'm going to do is copy the enhanced input local system, the is valid, and we'll just copy that. And I'll come down to the bottom and I'll add an event of unpossessed, like so. So this is when we've stopped possessing it, we've changed to something else. So on the old controller, which is our player. I can paste this in. So the old controller is just a standard controller. We don't need that just for now. So I'm going to drag off this and just do cast to player controller to treat it as a player controller instead. I'll connect this across to the is valid, connect this to the enhanced input system like so. And now from here we can just do remove context mapping or mapping context if it's valid. And the one we want to remove is the vehicle like so. There we go. So there's no way that the player is going to stack up different inputs. Just to test if it's working, if we're getting this, press enter to exit, look, we're all good. There we go. So we've now got a way for the player to get in and out of the cart as many times as they want. We can drag the cart around and we can start exit it like so. Perfect. So the next thing we're going to look at is actually starting the medical journey thing. Well, starting the medical mission. We won't be able to do anything yet, but we can at least show everything we need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to my UI folder down here. And normally, everything tells you to combine all your UIs into one big UI. And normally, that is the case. However, the exception to that is if that UI is temporary. So, I'm only going to show the bit at the top if you're in a vehicle, and even then, it's not going to be there all the time because you'll be driving around, the medical stuff will disappear. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and create a new widget, user widget, and I'll call it WB, and I'll call this one Medic Minigame, and I'll open it up. Inside here, we need to think how we want it to be laid. So we want one at the very top, a box somewhere saying press A key to do something. The other one we want is a timer and passenger count, the stats of the quest. So I'm going to come and add a canvas panel so I can statically position things where I want it. The first thing I'm going to add is I'll just add a horizontal box. I'll just come and add an overlay just underneath this. And this one we will call O_start text. Inside here, I'll just add a background blur like so. So you can see if we set that to be full size, and then we set the blur strength to be something like 2, maybe 4, maybe 3. It'll just mean the text will stand out more. And now we can just come and add our text just under it like so. So inside here, we'll set this text to something like press space, and that can be the starting. And then I'm going to duplicate it, Control C, and then I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to set this one to space start medic missions minigame. So it'll all overlay on top of each other at the moment, and that's okay. So I'm going to select both texts, right click, wrap with horizontal box, like so. And you might be wondering, why have we done it in that way? Why aren't we sticking it as one text? And this is the cool thing about using common UI. So if you have common UI enabled and you search for common action widget like so, and put it just in between there like so, we can now come and select a key that you actually need to press, and it will change it depending which platform you're on. So for me, how do we start it? We'll say M, and look at that. Now we have it saying press M to start Medic Minigame, which looks really cool. We can of course just center align it, make it look nice, do whatever we need to. So I will come and select the overlay. I'll tell it to size the content so it's correct. There we go. Press M to minigame. But the other thing we need to do on the common action widget is we need to tell it where it's getting its input actions from. So we've just set a design time key, which is just in this editor here what we're looking at. We can also come and say pad up, and it will show us what the icon would be for that, except we don't have an icon installed for that. So we'll go back to E. And then on input actions, we just need to tell it where to get it from in the game. Now I'm using narrative, so I can use narrative's input actions like so. If you don't have narrative installed, then all you need to do is create a data table and a bunch of these controller data classes to define how your controllers are laid out on each platform. But to be honest, even if you don't have any of the narrative plugins, Narrative Common UI is free, and it gives you loads of easy settings to use Common UI, so you might as well just download it, to be honest. So if I come into the data table here, you can see I've got a list of all my different actions I can perform. So I'm going to come and add an item at the very end of this, and I'll just call this one Start Minigame. I'll set the display name as start minigame. The whole display name, I don't need to worry about any of that, but I'm going to come into the keyboard input type. I'll set that to an E. I'll come into the gamepad and I'll do D-pad up, like so. And now with that, I can simply come back to here. I can select it to be our start minigame, like so. And now that means whether we're on a controller or we're on PC, this input will change depending on whatever you need it to be. I haven't found a way of making the common input action widget in between text, which will make translations a lot easier, because I know in some languages, I think Japanese, you wouldn't say press E, you'd say to start the minigame, E. So you do it backwards, so this wouldn't particularly work for localization points, but when I figure it out, we can always retroactively come and update it. So we now have our start text. Let's just add some animation to it so it fades in and out. So I'll click the animations, I'll click animation, and we'll call this one start text in. I'll click it, I'll click add and make sure I select our O start text. Then I'll click the plus and we will add a transform. Why not? So with this translation, I'll just come over to, let's say 1.5 seconds. I'll just make a keyframe for all of these. Then right at the beginning, I will just open the translation up and drag the y-axis so it's out of the screen like so, just above there. And what this means now is as I press it, it will fade in like so. And that's our in animation, I think. You could spend ages doing it, make it really nice. Like, for example, I'm going to come up here and I'm just probably going to drag it down to 1 second, I think. So now it just fades in. It's a bit quicker, it looks a bit nicer, look. So as soon as you get into the vehicle, we'll tell it to play, and that will come straight down like that. Now we are going to need to actually eventually tell this to go away. So I'm going to duplicate this animation by right-click and duplicate, and I'll call this start text out. I'll make sure I select it. I'll select these keyframes, and I will move it into the middle. Then I'll select the ending keyframes, and I'll move them to the very beginning, and then move these ones back in like so. So I've just basically reversed the animation like that. You could just tell the animation to play backwards. For me, I might want to do it a bit quicker. Actually, I probably do want to do it a bit quicker, so I'm going to move it to 0.5 like so. I'll come to my little red thing and give it a jiggle. There we go. So now it'll go straight out. So it'll come in nice and slow, and then tell it to go out. You animate it however you want. And now with this animation, if we go to the graph, delete pre-construct and tick, we don't need them. On construct, so as soon as you get into it, we can just simply say play animation. And the animation we want to play, which we can't select, is our start text in, like so. Then we want to wait for a provided amount of time. So I'm going to drag off of this and add a set timer by function name. The function name we'll call hide start text. We'll say after, 5 seconds. I'll promote the timer handle to a variable and I'll call it start text timer, like so. Then we can carry on and do whatever we want. But we will create this hide start function. Inside here, we will now tell it to play the animation. And this one we want to play is our start text out. And then we will also grab the timer. And just to make sure everything's cleared up, we'll do clear and invalidate timer by handle. This just basically cleans the timer up. I don't know if you have to do it, but it's good practice just in case you do. Now we can hit compile and save. Back to our event graph. This will call that in 5 seconds. So all we need to do is add this user's viewport now. So if I go back to our BPA medic, if I go back to our vehicle medical cart, because we don't want to do it on the vehicle, then I'm going to add a event possess. I'm going to right click it and choose add call to parent function. Now it's important you do this because as a child, when we add this event, we're overriding the parent, meaning this won't run anymore, and we still need that to run. So you need to make sure that you tell the parent to continuously still run, and then after this, we can do create widget. The widget we want to create will be our vehicle, will be our medic minigame. I'll promote it to a variable saying medic UI, and I'll make sure to add this to the viewport like so. Because we're adding it to the viewport, we actually need to remove it when we unpossess it. So we'll do event unpossessed, like so. Make sure that I still tell the parent to run itself like so. And then finally we can grab the medic UI and we can just do remove from parent like so. Just to clear up the UI. And now we can hit compile and save. So if we start the game, you'll see that the UI instantly pops up. But why is it instantly popping up? And the reason is that this cart here is instantly being assigned an AI controller on the game start. Now I don't think we need this, so if we come back to the BPA vehicle, class defaults and search for controller, if we search for possess, you'll see auto possess AI will disable this. So vehicles alone have 0 AI. Something has to take over the vehicle to control it, such as an NPC who is spawned with an AI. If you've got self-driving cars, that's a whole different thing. So now you can see no UI. If I take over the vehicle, boom, press E to start a minigame. How cool is that, ladies and gentlemen? If I went to a controller, it would say press D-pad up to start the minigame. If I get out, pressing enter, the UI is gone technically, but if I come back to it, the UI should render itself on again, like so. How cool is that? Now, of course, we can modify this, make it a little bit nicer. We could probably grab this and I'll probably move it like 20 away by 20 down, just so it's a little bit nicer. Does that mess up with the animations? Let us see. Nope, it keeps the offset, so that's even better look. So now it'll look a little bit nicer. I can probably add some space around it as well. So if we grab the horizontal box, we'll add some padding of 10 all the way around. Maybe 20. We'll go back to 15. There we go. So this just a nice little border around it, look. You can see it's just not there. The white text will be fine. I could probably add a custom font eventually, but for now, that's fine. So now we have our press E to start medic minigame. And when we press E, we can actually start the process. So the final thing we need to do is actually make this press E to start thing activate. So back on our vehicle medical cart, we don't want to do this on the vehicle because the vehicles don't need to actually be able to start the medical missions. That's only the medic car or the other vehicles like the fire or whatever else we do. So down here, I will add a minigame IA trigger. Then on started, the first thing we need to do, well really, we need to just hide that UI, don't we? Because we don't need it. So I'll drag this and I'll call hide start text like so. And I'll connect that to started. So that'll instantly come up to our UI. It will call hide start text, which will play the animation and clear the start text timer. And then after here, I'll just add a print statement saying medic minigame started. We can hit compile and save. So you can see if we now get in the cart and press it, it says press E, which is just something I've just realised. We haven't set the key to be E. We've set the key to be M for minigame. E's other things. So I'll select this. I'll set the debug key to M so it looks correct. And then what I'll do is I'll edit our data table, select the start minigame and just set it back to M because I want M to start it. And this time, if we start it, you can see we can get in. It says press M to start minigame. We press M and then it disappears and it says medic minigame started. How cool is that? Just to fix the UI animation fading out, if we just select the start text out, you can see the transform ends just a little bit too early, so we'll just drag it out there like so. So now it should fade out. So you see if we just go to here, drag it out just that little bit more, like so. Now it should fade out. If we just set this text to a little bit more, you can see as we drag it in, it should disappear. It's going quite far, so we'll do it like minus 100. I don't know why it's glitching out for me. There you go. It's just out of range now, so that should fix that issue. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen. There is our basic starting of the medic minigame. So we can now run around, we can get into the car. It says press M to start the medic minigame. We press M, and then the medic minigame starts, just like that. So in the next tutorial, we'll make it so when you exit the mini cart via enter, it starts a timer. We can add the UI to start ticking it, and we can start working on the level system that we want to actually make the cart succeed. After that, we'll start adding the NPCs around to be able to pick them up and stuff like that. It's going to be a semi-long series, but it's going to be worth it when it's done. So thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. Any issues, please let me know below. My name's Decryption, and I will see you next time.